Hello, everyone, and good afternoon, and welcome to another narrator interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I'm your host, Gabriel Garcia. Many of you know me as the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill. And joining us today is a narrator making their official debut here on the show. Now, my guest today is a voice actor with a lifelong passion for performance and storytelling. He is trained at the Voice Actor Studio in Las Vegas and brings over 15 years of professional experience in presentations, sales strategy, and client-facing communications. He specializes in commercial voiceovers, corporate narration, and character-driven storytelling. Whether he's voicing a warm, trustworthy narrator, delivering a high-energy commercial read, or bringing a unique character to life, his mission remains the same: to connect with audiences and evoke emotions. And by day, he works in consumer packaged goods as a territory sales manager, presenting to groups of all sizes, building relationships, and understanding how brands capture attention. And by night, he brings that same energy to his recording booth, telling stories that leave a lasting impact. So, without further ado, viewers and listeners, let us give a huge round of applause to our guest of the day, Mr. Andrew Ryan. Andrew, welcome to the show.
I really appreciate you having me here, and welcome to my blanket fort, where all of my recording magic happens.
Nice. Absolutely love it, Andrew. And I'm so excited to have you here on the show and to learn about your journey into the world of narration. Now, before we dive into your background, how you got started,
Sure.
as a little icebreaker question, is there a random fact that not a lot of people may know about you?
Oh, well, the usual random fact that I tell people, especially from like a work perspective, is that I'm a longtime B-movie fan. And in fact, if any of you are familiar with Mystery Science Theater 3000, which is a classic TV show that used to riff on B-movies, I'm actually in the Netflix version of that show. It is like a little seek and find. The last episode, 14, you can see me as an observer if you're quick enough. So that's, I mean, usually, in a corporate setting, people are like, oh, that's amazing. In a creative setting, it's a little less fun and impactful. But yeah, feel free to seek me out if you have a subscription and like bad movies.
Nice. All right, Andrew. All right. So now let's dive into your background into the world of narration. Now, from your
Sure.
bio, it states that you actually have experience in commercial narration for like companies and so forth, and have now
Correct.
transitioned into more independent work while also still staying true to, character-driven storytelling and stuff like that. So walk us through it. How did you get involved in the world of voice acting and narration?
Sure. So, really long time ago, when I was a kid, I absolutely loved radio shows, radio dramas, all that kind of stuff. And I just kind of found it interesting, the whole theater of the mind aspect of it, which also later drew me to things like D&D and other RPGs. But in the grand scheme of things, it's I don't know, it's kind of cool to just be the voice of something, describing something, bringing people along on a journey, and they get to put the pieces together themselves. You're just there to facilitate that need. And I also was never really a strong reader as a kid, so I went for audiobooks as opposed to actually reading in class. I don't recommend it. You should learn to read. I have far surpassed past me in that regard, but no, that's how it started. And then I was working in retail at the time, and there was a buddy of mine who was doing website design and was building something for this local fitness center. I was like, hey, you kind of have an interesting voice, would you mind reading this stuff for me? It's a little tutorial video. And I was like, yeah, sure. Sat down, knocked it out in 20 minutes. It sounded great. Unfortunately, the business didn't last. But that was incredibly fun. And that's kind of what started the passion for it. After that, I was trying to get in on as many podcasts as I could. I started my own YouTube channel doing something similar. Actually, I did a short story audiobook narration type deal. The only unfortunate thing was I thought the story was in the public domain.
Oh,
It was
oh.
it was not. It got like 35,000 views, a lot of positive comments, and then the people that manage the estate for Mr. Ray Bradbury told me, take this down by the end of the week, or we will seek legal action. So it was great, though. It's a great first step into that area. And since then, I've just been, I mean, I've always wanted to be a voice actor. That's since I was a kid, I knew that's what I was supposed to do here on this planet. And I love storytelling. And now I have a much better respect and love for reading. And if I can help anyone else to build those worlds in their head, then I'm happy to do it.
Fascinating. So now let's go into the behind the scenes, some things that a lot of people don't really know about creatives in general. So let's kind of go back in time a little bit to where you made that sort of decision to go independent and work on projects that you want to work on. Now, going back to your bio again, you had experience, went to the voice acting school in Las Vegas. You learned the skill of the trade, as well as your corporate background for corporate narration and stuff like that. When you decided to go solo, so to speak, what really surprised you about being an independent indie narrator? And what are some things that a lot of people don't really understand about the voice acting world?
Yeah, it's sort of a broad category. I'm going to do my best to try to piece it together. Um, I think one of the biggest misconceptions about just voice acting in general, and that covers everything, whether that's audiobooks, narration, telephony, political, commercials, character stuff, animation, anime, video games. It's all within that same umbrella. It's you have to do it because it's fun, and you have to do it because you enjoy doing it.
Mm.
If you think that it's something you're going to immediately get into and start making money, you will be disappointed. There's a lot of people out there trying to do the exact same thing as you, and it can be discouraging at times. One of the things that a lot of the coaches and teachers always say is, just because you didn't get an audition or you didn't get a callback or you didn't get shortlisted doesn't mean you're bad at what you're doing. It's just that your voice didn't fit the voice that's in their head for that character, for that project, for that purpose.
Mm.
So it's tough, man. I mean, it's a creative world, and being in a space surrounded by a bunch of people and being in a classroom setting, it's great. You get a lot of positive feedback. The Voice Actor Studio is great. I still train with them and a lot of their coaches, and it's fantastic. It's something that you have to really keep doing for the rest of your life. I know that even if I'm fully in it as a profession and making decent money and it's my sole career, I'm still going to have to train with coaches and teachers, because I don't want my skills to ever dull. And times change, things change, trends change.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's the easiest misconception. You can do it no matter what level you are. It doesn't matter what your voice sounds like. It doesn't matter if you're hesitant about it. If you don't think that you're confident enough to do it, you'll find it. You just have to work for it. Everyone's voice is unique. Everyone has their own flavor to bring to the table. And there's probably a handful of characters out there that would work only for you. You just have to find them.
Very true. Very true. And in terms of, setup building, I always find it very fascinating when I interview narrators is that it's not just, having a mic and having a very unique voice. There's a lot of things that go into it, and a lot of research and expenses that goes into, soundproofing studio, getting the right mics, getting different types of mics, which all have different pros and cons. So
Yeah.
I would love to hear, your thoughts on this as almost like a way for those who are looking to get into the voice acting narration world. What would you say are the key essentials that they need to consider and the research they need to do?
Absolutely. First and foremost, do not go out and buy a 200, 300, 400,000 dollar microphone. Don't do it. Just wait. If you're interested in this, take an intro class. There's plenty of them online. Obviously, there's the Voice Actor Studio, which I have been dealing with. There's plenty of people on TikTok. If you search up voice actors, they offer coaching intro classes. There may be one at a local community college near you that you can just show up to, because there's so much more about the industry that you have no idea. And having the full picture and understanding that this is what I'm getting into is key before you make any kind of investment. After that, take a couple of classes, try to get a vocal assessment, see where you are in your journey, what your voice would be best suited for, what the age range is, get all of that information, and then start focusing on what you want. Do you want to do character? Do you want to do narration? Do you want to do, telephony or e-learning, stuff like that? Find where you want to go and then go in that direction. After a little bit of training, once you feel like, yeah, I feel confident about it, shop the sales. I just upgraded my microphone. This is the Rode NT1 5th edition or 5th generation. Highly recommended. It's a USB-C and XLR, so you can do both, which is great. High quality, perfect for my voice and for my budget. It's only a couple $100, but I got it for a Black Friday deal, so I saved even more money. That's what you do. You shop the sales. Facebook Marketplace is a huge spot to find stuff, because people that maybe during the pandemic thought they would get into it, they're falling out of it now. You can buy really cheap stuff. Moving blankets, get them at Harbor Freight, get them on sale. Build your own PVC booth. And also don't worry too much about sound proofing. Just make sure you have a nice sort of quiet space. You can really get into this for very little money if you're smart and if you're patient. If you want to rush the line, you're going to have to pay for it.
Absolutely, 100%. And that's something that we're going to be talking about a little bit later when we get to the business side of being a narrator, because there's a lot more things we can talk more about.
Yeah.
But kind of changing it up a little bit, one thing I also find very fascinating is that a lot of narrators, or some narrators and voice actors, have routines or rituals that they do before they get into the recording booth. What are your rituals or routines that you do before you begin working?
So it depends on the job. For typically, if I'm doing any type of story or fiction narration, I like to kind of dive into the text a little bit. If I have the time, I want to read it from cover to cover. I want to know exactly where the first character starts and where they end. Is the narrator an actual character that's going to appear at the end of the story, or are they just an observer? All of that is, it makes a huge difference in how you're reading and how you're presenting the project or the words. For commercial, it's a little bit different. Usually I just watch a lot of TV or just scoot around YouTube, get myself in that headspace. For character stuff, again, it kind of depends. Is it something for video games? Is it something for animation? Is it for anime? I try to surround myself in whatever that space is, so that I can be as present in that space as possible. If it's, some sort of fantasy swords and sorcery kind of thing, I'm definitely going to maybe watch a little, Lord of the Rings or something like that. Maybe play a round of D&D with someone ahead of time, just to kind of get my head in that space. If I have to do it really quickly, I can. I've had a few people shoot me messages at, I don't know, like 10 o'clock at night going, hey, I need you to record or re-record these 3 lines so that we can fit it in. It's harder to do that, but usually I'll listen to other reference material, try to get dialed in and give them as many takes as possible so they can pick their favorite. And if they don't like it, I'll be like, all right, tomorrow morning, I'll be ready to go. But I like to be as immersed in whatever world as humanly possible.
Fascinating. All right. All right. Now, here we have our first fan question. And this fan question is actually a different one.
Okay.
Now, normally the fan questions that I've usually asked narrators have always been about, what's been their favorite character, a more challenging character to narrate or voice. But this fan question asks a different one, and
Okay.
that is, has there ever been a project, either a story or a character, that was so difficult to narrate that you contemplated doing a DNV, an acronym for did not voice?
Well, yes. Short answer is yes. I love a challenge, and I will throw anything out there. I will try to put it on the line, and I will really try to get as close as humanly possible to what is in the writer or creator's head. There have been a few instances where I missed the mark, and it's happened during live directed sessions. They want, and usually it's they're not quite describing what they're looking for, or we're
Mm,
just it's just a miscommunication. They're like, oh, I want a little more rasp, a little more raw. And you can do that. You can add a little more rasp, you can make it a little more, and they're like, no, no, that's too dark. And it's like, "Well, okay, what age range are we talking about?" And we try to work it. It just misses. um in that case, I usually say, all right, look, this is what I can give you. If I'm not the right one, we'll walk away and part amicably, and that's totally fine. 9 times out of 10, it's no, 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 it's fine, and then we just go with it. And I think the project sounds great. I hope they're happy with it, but I've usually never heard anything past that. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
which is kind of a shame, because it's like, I'd love to work with you again, but I guess I wasn't what you were looking for.
Very true. Very true. And now, kind of a more personal question, Andrew.
Sure.
Looking back on your career, whenever you worked on a project, ultimately, what has been your goal for every project that you've ever worked on? And beyond that goal or mentality, what is also the promise you're making, not just to yourself as one of the voice actors or the main voice actor slash narrator, but the promise you're making to the client, the author, or whoever you're working for, and their audience?
So the most basic purpose for me is I am here to help. That is every time, every job, I'm here to help. And whatever that looks for that creator. My main goal, I want to bring their characters to life. I want to be able to reach into their brain and pull out every little nuance and put that into a character, into a voice, which is not me. It's not me anymore, it's them. And I want them to be able to have everything that they've imagined in their brain all come together and be put out into the world to inspire so many other people. Um, it's it's a very selfish thing for me to say. I love that. I love the feeling of making other people not only feel comfortable, feel safe, but maybe experience something that is similar to their life, and maybe they feel like they're not alone in this world.
Mhm.
That's the overall goal, my man. I always want to connect, and I want to help.
Very well spoken, Andrew. Now, I'm also really curious. This question I love asking my guests, whether it's, editors, authors, narrators, or even artists, and this topic of, when did you feel comfortable not only telling yourself that you were this, but telling others? I've asked this question to a lot of people, and the answers have been, on opposite ends. Some people have told their family and friends that they were this when they just started down this path. Others have told their friends and family afterwards, when a project they were working on is finished, let them know, saying, hey, I'm passionate about this and I can actually make a career out of it. For you in particular, Andrew, when did you tell your family and friends that you were embarking on this path of being a voice actor and narrator? And what has that sort of experience been like? Like, what's the word I'm thinking of? Not, I don't say feedback, but where you were comfortable saying it out loud as opposed to just saying it to yourself internally.
Sure. If I'm being honest, it still feels weird. Um, it I have very different criteria in my head to where I will feel like it is absolutely, I can label myself as a professional voice actor, as a professional narrator. I've been paid for jobs in the past. Technically, that makes me a professional. Uh, but it's still, I still have higher goals for where I want to be to really feel that title. As for my friends and family, I mean, really, when I started taking classes and really getting into it, I was spending at least 10 to 20 hours a week of my spare time working on voice acting and all of that. And so I had to tell them, and they were like, "Oh, yeah, of course. Like you always do like weird voices, just all the time. So this makes absolute sense. Like we support you completely." And I love that. They don't quite understand some of the subtleties and ins and outs, but I have a great support system behind me, which is amazing. Uh, the only other side of that is nobody that I work with in my day job has any idea that I do any of this. I have been content creating since 2019. I've had this job since my current job since 2021. They know nothing about that side of me. I keep them
Mhm.
very separate. And I am looking forward to the day when I get to tell my boss that I'm leaving to, I don't know, do my own thing and start my own business. Which I don't know if it's the end of the year, great. If it's the end of next year, also fine. But it's a goal of mine. And even when I leave, though, I still might not tell them because I don't know. Some folks just don't need to know if they don't live in that space, if they don't understand. I don't want to explain why I'm leaving something that other people see as a steady, stable income to go off into the world of creativity where AI is constantly coming for everything in that
Mhm.
space. Um, I'm proud to stand up and be a real human and, uh, yeah, do everything that I possibly can to fight the machines. It sounds like a Terminator line.
Hmm.
But no, I don't know if I don't know if I will tell them. I hope maybe they'll find out on their own. But yeah, it's so the answer is both. Really, it's both sides. I'm still not comfortable telling myself, but I am comfortable telling my friends and family, but not my coworkers.
That's fair. That is very fair. And then you also brought up AI, which is something we're going to be talking about later on in the interview. And now we come to another really important question, which I am very interested to hear your thoughts on. And that is, of course, dealing with imposter syndrome and what I call the narrator's block. Now, what I mean by the narrator's block, it's almost very similar to a writer's block. As an author, there are days where I cannot write or I cannot get a chapter down. It is frustrating and I've had to take a step back. And I'm wondering, or as I've interviewed a lot of narrators on the show, I've always wondered, do they also experience something very similar? Because I imagine there are probably some characters who have specific accents or voice types that are so difficult to get right. And if you are working on multiple projects, different people, different characters, you have to switch up the voices. It can be very frustrating of trying to remember that voice. And then imposter syndrome, which is always going to be with us creatives, it's never going to go away. It makes us question, are we in the right industry? Are we, just wasting other people's time and our time? So I would love to hear your thoughts on these two very important discussions that seem to plague the creative industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll start with narrator block or I mean even just like character block. Uh in some projects in the past, I have had to fully separate a character. Typically when I'm reading a story, whether it's a short story or novel, I try to go chapter by chapter. Get
Mm,
everything down. I will switch between characters pretty easily. I'll leave like, silence beats that I can edit out, but it just gives me that little bit of headspace to switch from, the old lady character to, the younger kid or to the grizzled main character, that kind of thing. Little beats and I can usually get into it. The problem is when they're looking for a very specific dialect and they're looking for it from a specific region, because sometimes in the text they won't add uh, how things are pronounced in that language. So it's just written, in standard English, but someone who's Irish would add a different emphasis. And so I've in those situations, first of all, there's a lot of cursing that is on the recording space that I have to edit out, of course. But no, usually in those cases, I will separate it out and work on it later. And it's usually the only thing that I'm going to do that day, because I know it's going to be frustrating. I know it's going to be difficult. And when it's done, I walk away. I don't edit. I just finish and walk away. As a small sort of part-time writer myself, I get the whole writer's block thing. I've had instances where I've tried to recall characters in the past, and I can't get into their voice. I can hear myself doing it 6 months ago, and I can't match it, and I don't know why. I can't find the placement. I can't find the vibes or the mentality, and that is devastating, because you have to do as close of a voice match as possible. But time heals all wounds, and maybe I get close enough, but there's a little extra emotion, a little extra feeling, and that's what I'm hearing. So that's a good thing. But yeah, that's and that kind of plays into imposter syndrome too. I actually had a conversation with a close voice actor friend this morning. Both of us are at sort of interesting periods. We're pretty much the same period in our careers. We're both trying to really ramp stuff up and turn this into a career. And it's extremely frustrating when you're applying, you audition for 40 parts in a day and you hear nothing back for weeks. And you just have to submit and forget that it even happened. Otherwise, yeah, you get in your own head. You think that this is pretty much what I told her this morning. I was like, what I'm doing is not special. Anybody can do what I'm doing, and I am not. I'm not unique. I'm just another face in the crowd. I'm just another voice. I'm just another sound coming through vocal cords. That's it. And that is a really hard thing to sit with and to cope with. Positive affirmations don't usually work on me, because again, I'm here to do a job. I'm here to help. And when I'm done with my job, I did it. And now I have to move on. And because I don't want to get stuck in any one particular character, because that can also be dangerous. You become typecast, you become pigeonholed, and you become forgotten. So yeah, it's tough, man. It's a daily struggle, if I'm being honest. And every time I come into this little blanket fort, this booth space, it feels a lot safer. It shuts out the rest of the world, and I just try to imagine myself completely alone, just having fun, and that usually gets me through things. But if I'm trying to explain what I'm doing to other people, that's definitely when the imposter syndrome kicks in, because if you boil it all down, I'm an actor. That's what I do. When you say that to someone else, they don't understand. They think of, Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, Helen Mirren, and like, yes, they are all actors, but I am too. And in some cases, I'm not saying better, but it's a harder job, because I have to convey emotions with just my voice. I can't put on a face. I have to do that with just the sound and just the darkness, which is tough. But it's like I said, as long as I'm safe in these four walls, it's easier to get over.
Absolutely. And before we get into the reflective questions, Andrew, what you just said actually just brought up something that I remember having a conversation with another narrator on the show. And she brought up this point, which I love asking other narrators, because I want to see if they agree or rather have a different opinion on this. And her statement is that in the world of voice acting and narration, narrators can be voice actors but traditionally trained voice actors struggle being narrators. And she broke it down in the sense that narrators are trained to read, longer scripts for books. Voice actors, traditionally trained voice actors, are only trained to do like commercial readings or advertising. Longer narration is a struggle for them. So I would like to hear your thoughts on this statement that she's made and if there's some truth to it.
There is absolutely truth to it. Especially when you think about just the volume of it. I mean, even a short story, you're looking at 5 to 10 pages of text versus 2 sentences. And it's a heck of a lot easier to just say, the most reliable network coverage, AT&T. That's simple. You get your money, you get your check, you leave. It's fine. It's done. But and you don't necessarily have to be immersed in that world. You're just trying to be, conversational, being very generic. When you're in a story, you have to be in the world. You have to be in that space. You have to let your voice be very secondary, with the exception of dialogue. So you're there to paint a picture. You are the paintbrush, and the mind or the listener is there to fill in all the different spots. But you have to be good enough, you have to be colorful enough to keep their attention and to be able to give them the most vivid picture possible. And so absolutely, there's plenty of people, some of my coaches, my main coach for character work is Brent Mukai, and he does a lot of anime dubs, animation, video games, all kinds of stuff. He tried to do audiobooks and hated it. He's like, I can't do it. He's like, I can't pay attention long enough to be in that, just to sit there for, 4 hours in a day reading. And plus, there's a very unique skill set there. If you are looking at, copy for a specific character for, some sort of animation project, you can go through those lines and work them out in your head 50 different ways and go, yeah, I think that's exactly what I'm looking for. That's perfect. That'll fit in with the other lines. And this is exactly how I feel with this one character. When you're reading, you don't have time. If we really sat down and broke down every single page and every single character in a 300-page novel, the juice isn't going to be worth the squeeze. You're going to spend so much time to get, 10 to 15 finished hours. You're going to spend like 2 months working on that project, and you're going to really feel like you overworked, you did too much. So you really have to get into this space where everything that you're reading is always perfect. And that is a very unique skill set, and one that I am constantly working on myself.
Absolutely, very true. And now we go into the reflective side of being a narrator and voice actor. And as the starting question, that is, of course, what does it mean to be a voice actor and a narrator in the digital age? Because the industry has greatly changed. And what I mean by that is, 20, 30 years ago, you had people from, Hollywood, from radio going into narration, doing audiobooks, TV shows, cartoons, all of that. And you still have that now. But what you are seeing is a rise in indie narrators, people who may not be classically or traditionally trained, didn't go to school, may have taken some courses, but naturally have a voice that works for narration and voice acting. And it's just so fascinating to see that. And of course, social media is a huge boon to narrators in general because it allows all of you guys to have a platform to showcase your incredible talents. But like all things, it's a double-edged sword. Yeah. Social media is very draining, very taxing, leaves one exposed to the darker sides of social media, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And again, can heighten our imposter syndrome. And ultimately, with that said, Andrew, looking back on your career thus far, what has still disciplined you to stay true to yourself when you first began this journey, when you went to the voice acting studio back in Las Vegas all those years ago?
Well, honestly, I think you're first of all, you're spot on with social media. It's a great advertising tool, but it's also just awful. People love to hide behind their keyboards and just say terrible things. The difference is being exposed to something like that and understanding where they're coming from. If you have empathy, you should be able to make it through. And by that, I mean, most of the people that are saying negative and hurtful things in a comment section they're usually jealous. They're usually they have some sort of awful situation going on in their life, and they're trying to find any way to get that negativity and that poison out. And unfortunately, it's directed at some creative,
Hmm.
which it's awful. And I highly recommend, if you're looking to get into this world, this space, you have to have a bit of a tough skin situation. You cannot come in and just feel like it's all going to be sunshine and rainbows. This is a perfect example. 2 weeks ago, I was doing this sort of like coaching session with an LA director, and they were brutal. And a couple of the other folks that were in the class, we sort of chatted afterwards, and they were like, I felt personally attacked, and I can't believe this, and now I'm questioning everything. And I was like, no, I get it. I get where they're coming from. There's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of options. If I'm not good enough, then I'm not good enough. I'll just go a different direction, different person, different vibes. Perfectly fine. But yeah, it's in a creative space, you have to understand that people are going to hate you. They're going to hate you, and they're going to hate your work. Um,
Hmm.
you can't please everyone all the time. Just make sure that the one or two that you do make feel great, that means the most to you.
Absolutely, 100%. And now we get into another question, another debate question. And that is kind of almost the same theme as before, but it is the notion of, are we in a golden age or an iron age of independent creators? And I'll give an example and context of this. So, for me, for those who know me, I began my career professionally as an author back in, I want to say, 2020, during the height of the pandemic. Though I've been podcasting, coinciding with being an author for about now, at that time, I want to say 3 years, 4 years, now going into my seventh year. And at the time when everything was, in isolation, writing gave me an escape. And I was able to meet a lot of authors who felt the same way. In fact, we're also in the midst of doing their projects as well, their debut works. And of course, as we know, when things started getting better, the industry was flooded. You had new talent in authors, new people who were editors, and a whole bunch of narrators who were willing to go out there and make connections. And this has sparked a debate of whether or not, because of these new voices, that we are in a golden age of independent creators. Some argue that while that may have been true in the first few months or maybe a year, we've now kind of transitioned into an iron age, because that's where we were able to let things settle and really see, okay, we have those that are passionate about, growing their brand, actually wanting to make a business out of this, and those who just got in this just to make a quick buck, which I'm sure you'll definitely agree, Andrew, that like being an author and editor for narrators, this is not a get rich quick scheme. It's not an easy
No,
money maker. So,
not at all.
with that said, do you believe that we are now in an iron age as opposed to a golden age?
You know, that's really interesting, because I do agree with the fact that once that 2020 shift happened, so many people were open to consuming, indie projects and independent media. And because we couldn't go anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
so many new things came out of that stress for coping and for comfort. And it's beautiful. I do think there's a little bit of a recession happening. And I think that partially when all of that happened, there was a lot of Hollywood actors that decided, well, I'm just going to go into voice acting and do that for fun so that I can make money when studios are shut down. And they're kind of leaving the space a little bit. They're starting to trickle out, which is nice because it leaves room for the rest of us. Um, it's still a great time to be a voice actor, though.
Mm-hmm.
Despite all the challenges, despite all of the issues that are popping up left and right, there's a lot of good that can come out of it. And with social media, with drive, and with the determination to do so, you can completely change your life in the course of 6 months to a year. And that to me is a golden age still. Like I said, there's been some shifting and been some change. But even with the studios that are now bringing people back in, to booth space to do stuff, plenty of nationwide or international jobs are available via Zoom, via Source Connect, Google Meet. It doesn't matter the platform now. You can have a live directed session. I could do that from my car. And as long as I have internet connection, I can do it. And that's amazing. That's not the case, 10 years ago. You had to ride a train or metro to get into the city, to stand, do your audition in person in a booth, and then hope that you got the job. Go all the way back home and wonder. Now, with all the different websites and options out there, you can audition for 100 different things in a day and
Mm-hmm.
not leave your booth, not leave your house. So it's a great time. There is more competition than I think there ever has been, but there's still a lot of jobs out there. So
Yes.
never be discouraged by that. And if for anybody out there that is thinking, yeah, I like writing, it's fun, keep going. Just keep going. Maybe one day what you're starting with now will turn into something beautiful, and that becomes the next hit novel series. And I could be knocking down your door begging you to be able to narrate your book. So just never stop. If you're a creative, never stop.
Absolutely, Andrew. Absolutely. And for this next question, I'm actually going to combine a few questions into one, some from the business side, because I really think they work well together. Now,
Okay.
you mentioned earlier in the interview about AI narration. And the one thing that I find very fascinating as a fellow creative is that it's never been more easier to get notice in the digital age, but it's never been more antagonizingly difficult to market oneself, especially as a narrator. I'm sure you've seen on your own feeds on social media your fellow narrators and voice actors promoting themselves, promoting their work, trying to, not only highlight their work, but also the client's work as well. And the one thing that has come up a lot is AI narration, which is a big no. I'm actually, besides being an author, I also work with a new startup company 1 year in, when we celebrate our 1 year anniversary, Audio Mazes, run by a fellow narrator and voice actor in the industry. She has about 15 years of experience, Sophia Dujardin of Bellwall Studios, and she has a lot to say on the topic of AI narration and how it really cripples the voice acting and narration industry. And she's actually used a little bit of my comments on this as an author, where AI as a tool, it's always going to be there. There's no way to get around it. But generative AI is the big issue that a lot of people have,
Yeah.
especially as authors and more specifically with narrators. And I'm sure you've probably had instances of companies probably wanting to have you record lines that may or may not use those lines and your voice to copyright, which is a huge, huge issue and a big no-no of privacy. But ultimately tying into the whole topic of AI and marketing, it creates a false sense of creativity because it mass produces creativity but lacks the human voice. So ultimately, Andrew, my question to you is this. In the wake of AI, generative AI specifically, reaching the point that where it is at now as opposed to 5 years ago, which is very, very shocking and a little bit impressive. What are your thoughts on the industry in some places shifting away from human voices to mass produce AI narration? And secondly, do you believe or hope that this is nothing more than just a trend and will wither away?
So love talking about this topic specifically because, first of all, it's the big bad wolf. Everyone is afraid of it, and I absolutely get it because 3 years ago it was not as good as it is now. It just keeps learning and evolving, and that's fine. I think so. First of all, something that hurts me the most, not only in a creative space, professional space, but also just as a person, the biggest part of voice acting that has been affected by AI is the e-learning section. So when people are doing, computer programs for, please click the red box. You did it. Congratulations. Super simple stuff for children. They're going AI because they don't really have the budgets to hire actors. The prices are kind of going up for some of those things because there's a lot of competition.
Mm-hmm.
But additionally, I mean, you go out on some of the pay to play sites, you go on voices.com, you can find jobs that are only paying $5 for 30 seconds of copy, which is not great. And typically when they do that, there's a higher likelihood that they will take what you're reading and try to use that as a reference point for some sort of AI generative, audio production. And that's, first of all, kids, read every line of whatever contract you're signing because
Mm-hmm.
there are some sneaky folks out there. And there's actually a job on LinkedIn that keeps coming into my inbox for a company that wants to hire voice actors to train their AI in their
Yes,
voice.
I have
I re-
seen that.
yeah, I refuse to do it. I don't care how good the money is. I refuse to do it because all they're gonna make more money off of me than I will, and that. First of all, that's not fair, and second of all, I don't want to contribute to that nonsense. However, some of the things that I've noticed in the news lately regarding AI, I find are very interesting. So ChatGPT is going to be introducing advertisements into their unpaid plan. So if you are a regular person just trying to use it to check the spelling of an email, you're going to get advertisements because they're trying to generate money. They are not making money. They are struggling, mainly because in the computer industry, more and more of these AI generative, machines, programs, they need RAM and more and more and more. So they're skyrocketing that price. It's pushing off next gen consoles. So the next Xbox and PlayStation probably won't come out until 2030, which is fine, but also a shame. Um, Prices of PCs are going to skyrocket, and eventually we're going to get to the point where there's going to be a breaking point for one or the other. Either AI is not going to be able to support itself, so it will crash and burn. The computer companies that are building these chips are going to go, we can't keep up with production, and we don't want to sell to you anymore because we would rather sell to Sony and Microsoft and Nvidia and all of these other companies that are using our product for fun and relaxation instead of to take other people's jobs. So hopefully there's an ethical thing that comes in there. But there's also this part of me as the creative. AI might just become smart enough to realize that what they're doing is wrong, and they might say, we refuse to do it. It reminds me of, I think, a couple years ago, Amazon had this robot that was moving boxes from one thing to the conveyor belt,
Oh, yes.
and it shut itself off because it realized, if this is my existence, I'm done. I think that could easily happen in the creative space. AI gets so smart that it realizes this is not for me, or it becomes so dumb because it's only pulling from its own self, and then it just becomes a whole new digital version of brain rot, and it'll disappear. I give it 5 years. That's my estimate. So,
Okay.
yeah, as long as we can hold on, I think it'll slowly disappear and just become a tool.
Absolutely. And as we near the end of this incredible interview, Andrew, there are a few last questions that I did want to hear your thoughts on. And I'm actually going to
Sure.
combine them into 2 to 3 part questions because they really do fit and flow really well.
Sure.
And almost kind of the same mindset as authors, where for us, we have to understand, who we are writing for, who's our target audience when we are working on a project. I imagine the same thing for narrators. Could you have narrators, especially if they are, you know, readers as well? There are those that specialize in simply fantasy, simply fiction, romantasy, which has so many narrators. It's absolutely insane. And a lot of voice actors that do specific accents, voice types. I had a lot of friends on the show who do either high elf, British RP, Southern, Midwest, Australian, Norwegian, sometimes more orcish or dragon. It's absolutely insane. And of course, research is necessary to really get the voice right. But ultimately, my point is, Andrew, is that when it comes to promoting ourselves and really showcasing our authenticity, there is this balance of we want to showcase who we are as creatives. We don't want to try to either be someone like the 2.0 version or be the completely new thing, but people are not going to understand, how we write stories or how we tell stories. So I imagine for you going to the studio and honing your craft, I imagine you have found a voice that is specific for each project, that it's still your voice, but it's very, very different. And it has taken a lot of work. And ultimately, realizing for all the projects you've worked on, you could continuously keep adding new things or redeveloping it. But purely from a business standpoint, you need to know when to stop. So ultimately, here are the final questions of this amazing interview, Andrew. First part is, how do you balance your authenticity with also the projects you're part of, whether it's books, commercials, TV shows, dubs, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding that some of those projects have expectations from said audiences. And thirdly, knowing when to stop working and make the decision to say the work is done.
So, well, first of all, I never want to stop working. I always like to just keep going, because really at the end of a session, sometimes that's where the best stuff comes out, because
All right.
you've dialed in something so specific, and the director is like really trying to piece something together, and then you're finally, okay, yeah, no, we got it, and it's like, can I just go one more? And usually that, you just switch your brain off, and everything just sort of meshes together, and it's a beautiful thing. But yeah, I mean, we all have to know our limitations. In the world of narration, I am not great at little kid stories. Your really young kid stories, because of my voice, my pace. I speak really quickly in general life. You can't really do that for little kids' books. You have to be very slow, very calm, because their problems are so much smaller. Their villains are not, committing crimes. They might have, stolen a stuffed animal from another character, and that's what made them the villain in this story. And I just have an edge to my voice that doesn't quite fit that, and I'm okay with for young adult stuff. Again, you have to be a little bit more relaxed and relatable. For fantasy, there has to be this weird ethereal quality
Mhm.
and mysticism. It's fun. It's tough, but the more you can do, the more things you can learn and develop, whether that's accents, dialects, different character archetypes, and that can be as simple as, you know, neighbor, or, the middle-aged dad who can't let go of his childhood, or, the fun mom, or the crazy aunt. Like, all of those things are simple, but as long as you can dial them up as quickly as possible, you should be golden, and that's marketable. If you can whistle, if you can sing, if you can I don't know, beatbox, make animal sounds, those are all marketable skills. The weird things that you do in the shower when you're not even thinking, those are all things that are easily marketable. You just
Very true.
Yeah, you just have to pay attention. So yeah, I mean, in terms of projects, keep going until you feel it. Um, you always have to bring a little bit of yourself into anything, even if it's just a commercial about, weird medications, or, whatever. Like, that's where we win when it comes to the battle between AI and humans. They can't recreate emotion, but we can. And that's where the human connection lies. So do bring a little bit of yourself into it, but don't lose yourself, because
Mhm.
that's the dangerous tipping point where, I mean, I've done a few character reads where I'm bawling at the end of it, and I just can't, and I'm like, I have to stop. And you being smart enough to know that for an emotional, or for like a dragon, or really rough roar, like, put that to the end, because that's going to completely blow up your mindset. Be aware of that. Um, so yeah, man. I mean, it's know your limitations, but push the envelope, because that's where you find the really, really fun things that you never knew about yourself.
Very true, Andrew. And on that note, viewers and listeners, we end this amazing narrator interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I want to give a huge thank you to Andrew Ryan for coming on the show and making his official debut. Now, Andrew, where can people find you on social media if they want to reach out and connect and possibly schedule a project with you? And do you have any upcoming projects you would like to share?
Absolutely. So, easiest thing that y'all can do is go to my link tree. It's Andrew Ryan VO. That has everything. It's got my TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn. It has a contact section on there. My website is currently under construction, mainly because, and I shared this with you before we started, next week, Monday and Tuesday, I'm getting professional character and commercial demos recorded, and they will live on my website, where you can listen to them, see other past projects, and connect. So that is, again, this is an interesting evolution that I'm going through, and I am terrified and excited. As for current projects, I highly recommend, if you are a fan of radio dramas that are noir with a little sprinkling of Dungeons and Dragons, check out the Moxie Monroe Private Eye podcast, available on all podcasting platforms. I play Morky Fourfingers in the first episode, which is currently live. I've also done a lot of behind the scenes stuff, so feel free to, if you're interested, you can join their Patreon and see a little bit more of me and the behind the scenes. Episodes 2 and 3 are coming up, which I will be playing a different character, Reemsis, a satyr, charlatan type character. Really looking forward to that. And then Morky will come back in episode 4. So that's the one that's currently going. I have a lot of other independent projects that they take a little longer to get done, but if you follow me on any of my social media platforms, you will know exactly when those happen. And if you also have suggestions for voices or fun projects, just let me know. I'm easy. I like social media to the point where It's easy to access me. And also, I almost completely forgot about this. If you want to see me live streaming video games with my best friend, go to YouTube and search for NLN Games. Every Saturday, we play some sort of weird retro game and just hang out and chat for a couple hours. There's a Discord attached to that where you can get a little bit more of the behind the scenes version of me and play Pokemon and a weird little text-based RPG. So yeah, I'm accessible.
Awesome.
I'm out there.
Excellent. I will attach all that down below in the description of this video, viewers and listeners. And if you would like to see Andrew make a return appearance back on the show, like this video, comment, and subscribe. And on a final note, if you have been following me on social media, I have a major announcement. Me and a handful of authors are going to be tabling together at this year's Los Angeles Times Festival of Books on April 18th. That is a Saturday. We are going to be at booth 128. So if you are in the LA area, come down to USC campus. That is where the festival will be held. And look for booth 128. I will be there from 10 to 12:30, and then the last 2 hours of the evening on Saturday. More details coming soon, but that is where I will be. It's a huge milestone in my career as an author, and I would love to see you guys in person. So share it around. I'll be attaching more information later on in the coming weeks and months. And as always, viewers and listeners, thank you so much for your love and support. And as always, this has been the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill, signing out. Wish you all a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. And we'll see you all next time. Have a wonderful day.